Cheers.
Cheers. As you saw the title, homeschool, is it worth it? This has been a big thing we've been experiencing this year that we want to dive right into. So, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I defer to her. And one thing that we learned right away is that homeschooling is not for the faint of heart.
No.
It's not for the weak.
No.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you all about it. Okay. So we decided to homeschool, which in itself, it's a pretty hot button topic. Some people agree. Some people agree with homeschooling. Some people think. The funny thing is, I feel like I live in a community where most people homeschool, to be honest. Most people that I know. And there's, the people who don't usually say to themselves or say to me when they find out I homeschool, they're like, wow, I never could have done that. And I used to say the exact same thing. I used to say to myself and to my friends, like, oh, there's no way. That's wild. I could never do that. I could never homeschool. And I still feel that way. I chose it anyway. But we decided to go for it. I decided to go for it for a lot of reasons. And I mean, are we getting into the reasons? That's probably...
Well, yeah, because my limited interaction with homeschoolers growing up were the weird kids.
Oh, yeah.
They were the awkward, the ones that didn't know how to interact with people.
Socially awkward.
And it's like, do I want my kid to be that kid? And Alyssa, through this process, was telling me a little bit like the differences in homeschool back then versus now.
Yes, there's a lot of differences. And I think that the people bringing up like the socialization of your kid as like a main reason not to homeschool or what you're afraid of with homeschooling, I think that sort of has become obsolete all on its own simply because of all of the homeschool socialization opportunities that there are. So like all homeschoolers that I know, and we happen to live in a state and in a community where homeschooling is so widely like done that there are like almost too many programs to choose from where our kids are doing sports, doing music.
Who would have thought socialization is a good thing?
Yeah, there it is.
And that's why, but ultimately we kind of knew our kids were going to be social because we're part of a church. And so church is a great experience
for a big thing. Well, and to be fair though, a lot of the socially awkward homeschool kids also went to a church.
They're very,
It's a very...
But church back in the day is different than church now, I feel like.
It can be.
Well, I feel like church back in the day was like, hi.
Sorry.
You having a little mic
That's
problems?
what I need to do. There we go. That's all I needed. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Church is different, but I think that the crux of the argument is no longer centered, in my opinion, on whether my kids are going to be social enough or socially aware enough. And I also would like to say that whatever your definition of socializing your child is not even something that's important to me. So the way I would explain it is like, if you're saying I want my kid to be more socially integrated, socially aware, whatever you think a public school child is getting, I would argue that what they're getting out of certain school settings sometimes is actually kind of beating them down and kind of beating them into like a cultural submission of what everybody else says is normal. And that maybe kids who are not fitting that mold are being who they were always meant to be, but they just didn't get it like beat out of them through the cruelty of other...
Beat is a very strong word. Do you think they were being beat out of them?
No, but like I feel like in the same way that kind of joining a group in that social setting, it can kind of get you get your personality sort of warped in a way when you're trying to fit in.
I think it's called being molded.
That's true.
You're being molded and shaped.
Molded is a better word.
Molded and shaped into those around you.
Forgive my use of the word beat. And I also am not anti-public school at all. What I'm anti is, I guess, the idea that public school kids are all going to be better off because they fit in socially with other public school kids. I think that actually there's this really cool beauty that can come from just allowing kids to be super quirky and weird and not allowing that to be a thing that they feel any shame for, because that's all that they know. And that's probably who they were always meant to be. And as long as your kids are growing up, you know, respectfully and in a way where they're able to integrate into society in a way that's like, oh, let's pick up that thing that she's playing with. That's something that they you totally lost me with the cat fetch thing. But
so let me say this, is that through this process of my wife figuring out homeschool, because it's a huge leap from just knowing nothing to knowing just a whole different program. And she was encouraged and like, let's do it. And at this time, like, whatever's best. My response as a husband was just at the time, do what you can, do what you can, do what you can. It's kind of like I kind of took my wife went to college and I didn't. And so she knows education. She knows what she's doing. And I just said, whatever you want. And I never really gave my opinion or felt like my opinion was needed because I just trust her innately to do so. Like, whatever you want to do. But the reality is this.
Awkward
Phone calls. Is that as a team, we're to one team, right? We always say same team here, is that she desired my input, encouragement. And even though my voice still she let me know my voice still mattered. My opinion still mattered. Even though I didn't feel like I knew enough, like I still had weight in that conversation.
Well, it's because I desperately needed assistance and help with what I was doing, because I had no idea where to even begin with homeschooling. And luckily I had a lot of friends who had already been doing homeschooling and also who were starting for the first time the same time as me. So we were all like, let's all figure it out together. And we were able to ask each other questions. We had a great community. So I had that, which was great. But like ultimately it's up to you and me to educate our children.
And that's what I learned too. Like it is a team effort. Like I'm supposed to disciple my children as you are supposed to disciple our children. And so like you doing homeschool I should not take that, like shifting all that over to you just because you stay at home. Like I need to be engaged with you in that. And you, by my being engaging with you may not, like it's just supporting you in my words and my actions, even around the home. And I don't do that. I'm saying that now, like I do that all the time. Like that's not true. Like I fall short all the time. And it like takes Alyssa to remind me again.
I feel like it's easy to just say, your sons are going to talk to me the way that you're talking to me, or you're talking to your sons and then they're going to talk to me that way too. That's the same thing I just said. But the example, and it's very gentle. It's a very gentle reminder. And I think that you do a really good job at like realizing in the moment. And I think that's a strength, because a lot of people, including me, have a hard time being called out in the moment of like, you need to be more gentle. And what you're doing is going to have an impact beyond this moment. And you do a good job. Side note, you do a good job at that.
Thank you, team member.
You're welcome,
cast member.
Team member.
So in saying that, again, just to preface all that we just said, we're not professionals. We don't know what we're doing. We're just figuring it out. And
I haven't even gotten started in like what I'm actually doing for homeschool and if I actually think it's worth it. I'm doing my basic storyline, plot line here is that I saw people doing homeschool and doing it well. And I saw the character in their kids and I saw the freedom of the schedule where I was like, wow, like I think having a baby and being a first time mom and basically counting down 5 summers or 5 Christmases or whatever. And then my child was just going to be like, I felt like out of my hands for most of their day, most days, most of the day. And it's like, I get to shuffle you out to school really quickly in the morning and then see you for like a little homework, a little dinner, and then you're gone again. And 5, like it seemed, I was like so desperately like sad about that. And to see all of these other kids who are older than my kids doing homeschool and their families are just like on vacations, like camping trips and whenever they want because they can school on the road. I was like, that sounds amazing. Like more family time.
Absolutely. You know? And I think we're again, like Alyssa said, we're not dogging public school because we do see the value in public school. Not everyone.
We both came from
we
public
both
school.
came from, and the thing is that I think homeschool is a blessing if you're able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not able to do it, there shouldn't be shame. There shouldn't be a guilt trip. There shouldn't be like, I can't believe you're sending your kid. I think needs to be a healthy respect between the two. And I think, public school gave homeschool a hard time back in the past, but now I feel like homeschool will give public kids now a hard time. Like the public school are the wicked and evil and liberal kids, but like, that's not true. And the public school offers amazing programs for people that need them.
Amazing.
And people need to work, and we're in a situation where you're able to stay at home and you want to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you wanted to go to work we had an agreement in our marriage that like Alyssa has the freedom to do what she wants. And I, as a father and husband, need to provide for that. Like that's the
It sounds weird. I'm not like this like diva demanding all these things from you, but it's true that we had the conversation where we said, hey, like, I think we both agreed that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and that would be what's best for our kids when they're very little. But providing that we could make it work financially, and there's been a lot of work in that and a lot of sacrifices that have been made in order for us to continue to sustain a one-income family. It's not a thing that like, wow, we're just so blessed. Like, wow, like we just are making so much money. It's not that. It's that we are very intentional and worked very hard to be able to sustain that. And some people are not able to make that work. And like, I mean, my parents weren't. And like that's so hard. I was telling someone the other day, I was in school all day plus after school programs. And I also would like go into work with my mom, like before school. I would like sit under her desk at work, and then she would drop me off at school. And then after the after school program ended, she would pick me up, and sometimes we'd have to go back to her job. And that was her working so hard to provide for us. And I will always be thankful for how hard she worked. And my dad too, like the same thing, like just how hard they worked to provide for us. There is no shame in that.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I do think there is a difference there are some traps to be wary of in public school, but the same thing with homeschool. Like I think you do have to have a healthy balance, but we'll find out if it's worth it. And if you guys think it's worth it, share in the chat.
Well, I have also more things of like that I've discovered. And I think that first of all, homeschooling is really, really hard. It's super hard because it's just taking on so much that like teachers go to college for 4 years, plus a lot of them get a master's. They all have a teaching credential. Like there's so much that goes into learning how to educate a child. And I understand that that's something that I have never studied. And I just give such like amazing props and kudos to all teachers, and like a couple of my best friends who are teachers who I'm like, that's amazing. And they've taught me so much about how to best like school and educate my kids. I think that that's amazing. And I know that I will never have that skill set fully in the same way that teachers do. I think they're great. And I also am open to seeing what I'm capable of. And I want to learn, and I want to be available for that. Knowing I'm not the best, but just seeing what's out there. And there's a lot out there. I asked a friend, this is the last thing, I'm going to wrap it up. I asked a friend, hey, am I supposed to feel like I'm drowning in the first year of homeschooling? And she says, yep, that's the first year. Like, that's what it feels like. And you slowly get your bearings and you do your best. You have to just decide what your priorities are. You know what I mean? What do you think?
Experiencing like my initial reaction when she was going through this, when we talked about like my opinion and stuff, I was like, just put him in public school. Why is drowning even worth it? But then seeing the impact the time I get to spend with them, that she gets to spend with them, the reality is we really only have like 12 years with our kids. You say 18, but by age 12 and up, like they're hanging out with their friends. They don't want to hang out with you anymore. So spending that time with them it's been so valuable. And having that freedom, because I'm spontaneous, as we explored here, is you can't take that time back. And so if I can have more time with my children, bring it on. Like,
Yeah.
and I see the value of that. So
And-
that's my thought in it. And like, yes, you're drowning, but like, that's parenthood. Parenthood is like, you're throwing out lifelines to people and community and surrounding each other. We talked about that last stream, and it's so important with our children. So I'm super grateful that we're able to do it in this season. It could change year by year.
Right.
And ultimately, I come to the conclusion in high school, when they have the opportunity to go in high school, they built a foundation at home. They can choose whether or not they want to go to go to homeschool. Like, we need to allow them to have that freedom to have choice now versus, hey, you're not. I'm gonna keep you prisoner. And I think that will force them away.
Yeah, and to like clarify as well what you're saying, like, my goal with homeschool is that we would build such a great foundation for them in these early years, that by the time they are 12, 13, 14, 17, that they want to be at home and they want to spend time at home. And that's not always the case. Teenagers are just teenagers. Like, we know that. We work with teenagers. But just to be able to say, like, man, I really like my parents. And because we have a great relationship, we know how to communicate. We go through the hard struggles. We talk through the hard things together. And not, oh, I learned everything I know about this topic from kids on the playground, kids at school, and that's who I feel safe talking to. And I don't know how to have a conversation that's hard with a parent. Like, we just want to be as available for that as we can. And I mean, everything could change. I could pick a curriculum one year, throw it out the next year, do this, do that. The biggest eye opener about homeschooling for me was the fact that you don't have to pay for it. And I think that that's a big misunderstanding.
In California, you get a lot of money.
I didn't know that before I had homeschooled. I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoever's homeschooling, like, must be nice. You must be loaded, like, or you must have all this extra money or whatever. No, like, we signed up through a public charter, and they say, great, you want to homeschool? Here's some money. Go buy your curriculum, buy your school supplies, buy what you need, educate your child, because it's the same as paying taxpayer dollars to put them into a public school. And I was like, wow, it's just cool. It's a cool thing. And I think ultimately for us, in the season that we're in, and the kids that we have, their personalities and who we are as a family, homeschooling is worth it for us. Even though it drives us up the walls, there's lots of whining, there's lots of fighting, there's moments of me losing patience, that's family. Like, you get used to it. The screaming slowly numbs. Your ears slowly would get numb to the screams. Slowly become deafened. You know what? What I love that you said to me a couple weeks ago was that how, especially with our sons, that like there will come a time where you take over their education as the man discipling our sons. Like, that there will come a time where, like, right now I'm nurturing them and growing them as their mother, and then there will come a time where you will be their main instructor. Mm-hmm. Into manhood. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that day. Yes. And they're going to weep about that day. They're going to say, I love you, Mom. I don't want to leave you. And it's like ripping them from their mother and saying, you will not. We're going to the wilderness. You're not ripping to survive. Them. Like the Spartans of our day. I'll probably go with you because you guys would freeze and starve without me. That's part of the process. Well, I'm so thankful for Alyssa and this journey that we're on. And we'll see what comes, the fruit that comes from it. I think a lot of parenting is trial and error, and you won't see the fruit for the next 25 years. Just kidding. 25. No, hopefully they're out of our house by then. But no, I think that's true. Like, we have glimpses of things that we said and done with our children when they were younger. And so we're the biggest thing that homeschooling is teaching us, that we need to have good habits. We need to have good teaching and not having procrastination, because it's easy for us. Again, we're going in circles. Well, parenthood is a mirror in of itself. Yes. But homeschooling is like a hyper-focused, extra lenses. Yeah, mirror. Because it's like, oh, we can just go on vacation, or we can do that. And you and I've always been like
hey, we're going to stick to it. And it's important. We're going to make it happen no matter what. We're not going to skip school. But having the freedom to leave on a Thursday or Wednesday to go see family or do this, it's great. But then we put off homework and we put off this. And so it's creating like procrastination, like, oh, I don't need to do it now. And it's like,
Well,
there's something about a system that I really love, and it's more flowing in our home. But that's how we live. We're flowing in and out of here, and the way we talk and the way we do things, and it's never structured. So I wonder how that's going to happen. So please, if you have any tips on how to be structured.
I disagree.
Really?
I work really hard to keep it really in line and really structured, and you're not there, so you don't know.
That must be true. I'm in and out. So
I'm just saying, like, it's true. We are definitely a lot more free flowing, but that's literally the nature of homeschool, and that's why people do it.
Oh.
But before we went on our anniversary trip for a week. We were gone for 8 days, 10 days from the kids. And I did double portions of 2 of the subjects the week before, and I did double portions of the other subjects after we got back. So there was no school missed when we were gone.
Wow. Incredible.
And
That's my wife, everyone.
I guess you didn't know that.
I did. That's my wife. Incredible.
Thanks.
That's an incredible afterthought. So hopefully, as you see how we're figuring things out, you cannot feel so bad about yourself.
Hopefully you watch this and you're like, I have it so much more together than they do. Thank God. I'm not doing as bad as I thought. I'm watching them and I feel so much better. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us for after hours.
Afterthought.
I like after hours.
After hours is already a thing.
Parent after hours.
No, after hours is already a thing.
This is our parenthood after hours. After hours parenthood.
I like afterthought.
Afterthought of after hours.
Because this is an afterthought. This whole podcast
this
is an afterthought.
This literally was an afterthought. I literally started this podcast because this live stream, because I was like, let's just do it tonight.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
And we have no idea what we're talking about. So take it with a grain of salt.
Or some coffee beans.
Just our journey.
Take it straight.
It's just our journey.
So, how do we close out? If you have any tips.
What, like a jingle?
A jingle.
Should we do a jig?
A jig.
End.